Hello there, welcome back to another flight review. Today, I'll be flying with Qantas Airways from Jakarta to Sydney, Australia. I'll be departing from Terminal 3, the international terminal of Soekarno-Hatta Airport in Jakarta.
Arrived. Time for check-in.
The check-in counter for Qantas is located in Section B from B14 to B26. You can always check the information board when entering from any entrance. I only brought one piece of baggage and a carry-on for this flight. And there it is, our check-in counters. Qantas operates daily flights between Sydney and Jakarta. You will find separate check-in lines for business class and economy. There are many passengers flying on today's flight. Whether you checked in online or not, you still have to line up to drop off your bags and get your boarding pass. Our flight today is QF42, scheduled to depart at 7 p.m. local time. It was a long line, but fortunately I made it through and got my boarding pass with the carry-on tag. After checking in, I immediately went straight to the departure entrance, where I encountered an even longer security and immigration line. I believe it took another hour. And finally, I was able to reach Gate 5 for tonight's flight. I tried to get a view of our aircraft, which is parked beside Emirates Boeing 777. And there it is, the Airbus A330-200, registration Victor Hotel Echo Bravo Delta. Not long after, boarding began with business class and economy boarding simultaneously but in separate lines. Flying to Australia with Qantas always requires a manual bag check before entering the aircraft. Once cleared, it was time to board. I was excited to try the older cabin version of Qantas A330 series. And here we are. This is their older economy class seat model with a 242 configuration. On your seat, you'll find a headphone, a pillow, and a blanket. The headrest is embedded in black soft leather material. As you can see, there's no seatback screen. However, there's a specialized iPad in your seat pocket, along with a magazine, a safety instruction card, and a bottle of water. The weather outside was wet due to rain, and this was my window view for today's flight. After some time, we started our pushback. I remember there was a safety demonstration performed manually by the crew, and it took place even before we started pushback. Sadly, I didn't manage to get footage because I was busy communicating with my family on my phone. Once the plane started taxiing to the runway, the cabin was fully secured for takeoff. I took some time to film our taxiing process, and as you can see here, Garuda's Boeing 777 was parked. I did a mini vlog review of flying with it a couple of years ago. This flight was quite different, as I was flying out of Indonesia for the first time to reside in a new country and start my master's degree in Sydney, Australia. Luckily, I've been to Sydney before, so I kinda knew what to expect. We then arrived at runway 25 right, ready for takeoff. This is the full footage of our takeoff process. As you can see in my reflection, Qantas does not turn off the cabin lights during takeoff and landing, which is completely different from the procedures we're used to in Indonesia. We then climbed to our cruising altitude and headed towards Australia. Once the seatbelt sign light was switched off, I decided to try the iPad Entertainment provided. In front of the seat, there's a tablet holder where you can place your iPad. The iPad itself is provided in your seat pocket. It comes in a special leather case with the Qantas logo on it. There's also a USB charging cable with 2 ports available on each side. This iPad is configured specifically for Qantas, so you cannot open any other apps besides Qantas Entertainment. Inside, you'll find plenty of movies to choose from. Next is the headphone wrapped in paper, which is great for reducing plastic use. I then found that on the left armrest, there are side control buttons and a headphone port. So I opened the headphone wrap and tried to plug it into the armrest. I was wondering how it would be possible to hear the audio from the iPad without Bluetooth connectivity. And yes, I was right, it doesn't connect to your iPad. To listen to audio, you have to unplug the single jack connector and plug it directly into the iPad's headphone port. The tablet holder can be tilted to adjust to different seat angles. So this is my final setup. The side controls have nothing to do with the iPad. Next is the charging port. It is a USB Type-A port, but luckily I always carry an adapter with me. I hope more airlines start including USB-C port as well. The entertainment screen itself isn't very big, as I believe this iPad is just an iPad mini. However, since it is an iPad mini, the screen sharpness is definitely way better than the older A4 screen. Not long after, the cabin crew handed out the incoming passenger cards for customs declaration in Australia. Make sure you fill them out correctly as they will be recorded in your profile. They also gave us salted snacks, which I personally found very salty but still tasty. We then received our meal shortly after. This is a very typical Qantas meal. I hope they expand their menu soon. For tonight's meal, I opted for apple juice. The main dish was very Indonesian, featuring rice, fried noodles, vegetables, and potatoes. We also got wooden cutlery and a garlic bread. I then continued watching a movie while having dinner. Next was a lavatory visit. The toilet itself was quite small and tight, but very clean. There was a heated water tap and soap for washing hands, but unfortunately, I couldn't find any additional amenities. Hopefully, that improves in the future. When I was about to return to my seat, a flight attendant gave me an ice cream, and when I arrived at my seat, there was another ice cream on my tray table. So basically, I got 2 Paddle Pop ice creams for tonight. Since this was a red-eye flight, we got a big Qantas pillow and a blanket packed in plastic. The blanket material wasn't the best in my opinion, but it still did the job. One of Qantas' signature service is that flight attendants hand out eye masks before sleeping time. We got red and gray eye masks, but they were not meant to be taken home. After flying with Qantas 5 times, I noticed that their blankets are designed to be breathable. As you can see, there are a lot of small holes allowing air to pass through. Apparently, there was one final service before sleeping time. Yep, Tim Tam biscuits. This time, I paired it with a glass of water. I was already full after having those 2 ice creams. And now I was ready to sleep. Soon after, the cabin lights were turned off to allow passengers to get some rest. As there wasn't much to see outside. It was time to sleep. Okay, I have to be honest here. Last time I flew with Qantas from Bali to Sydney, which is also a red-eye flight. We got a full breakfast before landing, so I'm pretty sure I missed the breakfast service because I was woken up by the crew in preparation for arrival. Yes, I'm a good sleeper on an airplane. When I said beautiful, I realized Sydney was under cloudy weather this morning, so we got to see this stunning morning sky with clouds beneath us. This is the footage of our approach and landing into Sydney. And there is the Sydney CBD. We are landing soon. Welcome to Sydney, Australia. We landed at Sydney Kingsford Smith Airport at around 6:04 a.m. I'm so glad I got to fly on their older A330 with iPad Entertainment. This aircraft used to operate under Qantas low-cost airline Jetstar, which is why it doesn't have a built-in in-flight entertainment screens.
Good morning and welcome to Sydney, where the local time is 5 minutes past 6 a.m. Qantas would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the airport's lands, the Kamangal people belonging to Botany Bay. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until the seatbelt sign has been switched off.
Thankfully, I heard that Qantas will update their aging A330s with a new economy cabin starting in mid-2025, featuring the same seats as their upcoming A350 series. I hope I'll get to try it in the future.
Cabin crew, disarm doors and cross-check.
As you can see, the passengers remained seated until the seatbelt sign was turned off. This would be very different if you were flying in Indonesia. Now it's time to disembark. Overall, I had a great flight with Qantas. However, the cabin is starting to show signs of wear and tear from aging, but it was still a comfortable flight. The crew were fantastic on this flight, and you can feel the Australian touch whenever you're flying with them. Hopefully, they will continue to improve, as I've heard many complaints from Australians about a decline in service and recent issues. Let's take a final shot of our plane today. It is now being prepared for another flight. One great thing about flying Qantas at Sydney International Terminal is the short walking distance, as their planes are parked close to the terminal. If you're connecting to another flight, just turn right for international transfers or turn left for the exit. You will then pass through the duty-free area and soon arrive at passport control, followed by customs check. Skipping ahead, it's finally time to get my baggage, and it didn't take long for mine to arrive. And there it is. I finally made it to Sydney. To get an Uber, simply follow the signs for rideshare towards the parking area. That's all for today's flight review. Thank you so much for watching and see you in another video.